Throughout Jamaica, our great athletes are loved and celebrated. Bolt, Asafa, VCB, and Shelly-Ann, along with their illustrious colleagues, are household names. These athletes have indeed reached dizzying heights and covered Jamaica in glory. Their success, however, was not an overnight sensation. Their paths were paved in gold, silver, and bronze. This tradition of sprinting was long established by great Jamaican athletes of past eras, who for more than 60 years have challenged and conquered the world. Since 1948, the Olympic Games have been the happy hunting grounds of many Jamaican sprinters. They have also been the scenes of great heartbreak for many others. This is the story of heartbreak and of triumph, of defeat and determination. This is the story of Herb McKenley, one of the greatest quarter-milers to have graced an Olympic track. Herbert Henry McKenley was born on July 10, 1922, in the parish of Clarendon. His father, a doctor, wanted Herb to follow in his footsteps. Herb's mother, however, wanted him to be a violinist, and at the age of 12, sent him to music lessons 2.5 miles away from home. Rather than wait for a bus, Herb got there faster by running. Later on, Herb was sent to Calabar High School, a Baptist institution where he excelled at track. This venerable high school is celebrating its centenary in 2012.
And the sports master saw me one day and called me, asked me my name, and I told him. And he says, if I'm on the track team, I told him no. He says, why don't you come out and we teach you to run? So I told him, I said, it's all right, sir. I know how to run already. And he says, no, we want you to be on the team. But I don't know, I guess I wasn't enamored with it, with the idea. Mm. And I didn't go out for about 3 weeks or so, and apparently told the headmaster, Dr. Gurnus King. Dr. King was the man who motivated me, not only to run, but to be aware that I'm not alone, that I should belong to something, my family, my school. And for the first time, I thought about Jamaica. Jamaica to me then was just a word. Mm-hmm. Believe me, it was just a word.
And it was colonial Jamaica.
Yes. So, in fact, I never thought much of it because what I knew then was that Jamaica belonged to England.
Most successful Jamaican athletes dominated their events at high school championships. Herb McKenley won only once, the 400 meters, in his final year. That performance, no doubt, won him a scholarship to Boston College, the first Jamaican athlete to be awarded a scholarship to an American university.
Going back to when Herb had come up to Penn's with University of Illinois, he transferred from Boston College out to Illinois with the coach Leo Johnson. And they came in 1946, and Herb anchored winning relay teams in the 4x1, the 4x2, and the 4x4. And then the next year, Herb was trying for an unprecedented 5 relay championships. And again, they won the 4x1 and the 4x2. He ran the leadoff leg on the distance medley, the leadoff quarter-mile leg. Then on the last day, he ran both the sprint medley, the leadoff 440, and was also anchoring the 4x4. Herb came away that day with 3 watches and 2 silver medals.
Herb was a superstar athlete at Illinois University, known in American newspapers by monikers including the Brown Blur and the West Indian Typhoon. His rare combination of speed and endurance made Herb a favorite of American track and field fans. Herb's time at Illinois would teach him lessons that would serve him well in the future.
United States battle with McKenley and Wint of
The
Jamaica.
year was 1948. The scene, the London Olympics. These were the first games since the English capital was ravaged by the Second World War. Arthur Wint, a resident in Britain, having served in the RAF during the war, and Herb McKenley were Jamaica's hopefuls for medals.
At that time, Herb was running principally the quarter-mile distance, 400 yards, 400 meters, and of course it was meters in the Olympics. He arrived there as favorite son, having had many records, world records, 400 meters, 300 meters, 400 yards.
Herb was known for a fast start at the quarter mile, and he told a reporter confidently, "Once I'm in the lead at the top of the home stretch, no man in the world can beat me." Arthur Wint won gold, pipping the favorite McKenley in the first of several Olympic heartbreaks for Herb. Wint also ran a close second in the 800 meters to the American legend Mal Whitfield. Jamaica's 4x400 relay team, although strong, was not favored to win the event. Along with Wint and McKinley, the team comprised George Roden, also a student in the US, and Leslie Lang, a specialist at the 100 and 200 meters. Running the third leg, Wint got the baton 20 meters behind the Americans and began to close fast on the leader. As he rounded the final bend, Wint pulled up with a hamstring injury.
The 4x400 meter relay, I'll never forget. It was almost Jamaica's day. We were doing very well, almost in the ascendancy. Herb was waiting to get the baton from Arthur. And Arthur, as you know, was a favorite son of the English sporting public because he lived in England for a long time and was still resident there. Arthur was coming around and everyone was focused on him, and he began to fall back. Eventually stretched his leg thigh out and fell to the ground. Herb was waiting, looking back, as if he would thought that Arthur would get up and start running again. But this was not to be so.
Helsinki 1952 signaled the coming of age of the Jamaicans as a force in world sprinting. By this time, George Roden was the 400-meter world record holder, having usurped his countryman McKenley, who was the first man to run the distance under 46 seconds. Jamaica was once again considered the main rivals to the Americans in the 400-meter races. The island was represented in the 4x400 by the same quartet from London 4 years earlier. In Helsinki, they were more mature and experienced, and are still the most successful mile relay team ever assembled by Jamaica. Herb was slowly finding form leading up to the games, having just recovered from an injury. His main rivals were America's Mal Whitfield and his countrymen Roden and Wint. The Americans, however, boasted a strong quartet for the 4x4 relay and were favored to win. Herb was a super athlete. He transformed the 400 meters from a middle distance to a sprint event. He ran the 100 and 200 meters as well. To this day, Herb McKenley is the only human being to reach the Olympic finals in all three sprint events. In one of the most controversial photo finishes in Olympic history, Herb McKenley and Lindy Remigino of America clocked the same time in the 100 meters. The gold was awarded to Remigino. McKenley had to settle for silver.
I lost the 152 by a photo finish. I mean, really,
Pretty close.
pretty cool. I thought I'd won. In fact, the guy who got it thought I had won.
Yeah. Was he American?
Yes, an American, Lindy Remigino. We're good friends up to today.
Up to the
By that time, he is no longer the world number one. George Roden has taken the world record and goes in there as world number one 1950, 1951, and comes into the year as a strong favorite. Herb is coming back from injury back in the 51 season and comes into 1952 trying to get back and just begin to show some form before the games. Runs the 100 as sort of a pipe opener, narrowly second in one of the most talked about finishes in the Olympic history, and comes to the 400 knowing that at just about 29, this is all or nothing.
The finals of McKenley's pet event, the 400 meters, featured himself, his old rival Mal Whitfield, Roden, and Wint. McKenley adjusted his strategy of going out fast. He laid back, opting for a late kick, and chased Roden to the finish line. Both runners were given the same time. Roden gold. McKenley once again silver. Herb McKenley cried. He had tried his hardest and had failed to accomplish his desired goal. He lamented, "Now I'll never win a gold medal." Herb was hurt but not defeated. A last opportunity for Olympic gold presented itself in the 4x400 relay. The Americans were favored to win. Only the Jamaicans could upset them. A Jamaican victory was unlikely, and Herb's history of near misses at the Olympics must have haunted the team. The Americans led the race by more than 12 meters when Herb got the baton on the third leg. He almost panicked, but suddenly remembered some advice from his coach at Illinois when faced with a similar situation.
We were about 13 meters behind, far away. And I remember taking the baton and I said, oh my God, they're going to blame me. I don't know why, but I just didn't figure, it didn't seem possible. I took off like I was.
Yes.
And then I heard a voice. I heard the voice of my coach at something that happened 5 years before.
What?
When Mal Whitfield had beat me in a race that he shouldn't have, and I was very upset. He says, never mind. Next time, a little at a time.
Yeah.
And I was gone about 40 yards when
Came to you.
the words came to me, a little at a time. And I just relaxed, but I was still running fast.
Yes.
And then suddenly, in the middle of the last straightaway, I heard the people roaring. And I suddenly became aware of, can't remember his name, in front of me. And he was almost like I could touch him. And I really started to run then.
Yes.
I passed him just before the tape and gave Roden 1 yard. And we won by the 1 meter, we won by the meter.
Herb ran a blistering leg of 44.6 seconds, unheard of at that time and still a good time today.
One of the things that happens with track is that the number is just a number. We look at the number and say, well, they ran 46.952, so they're slower than we are now. But track changed in 1968 when you had the synthetic tracks at the high level for the first time. Herb and Mal Whitfield and Andy Stanfield and Bobby Morrow all ran on dirt tracks. They would have the dirt and burn it. And the cinders, I suppose, made the track bouncy and helpful to the athletes. And so those cinder tracks were in service, international track and field, right through the Olympic Games through 1964. So when you run a relay leg in 44.6 in 1952, wearing 9-pound spikes in 1952, training and eating the way they ate for athletics in 1952, then it's a whole different deal when you think about 44.6 today. My estimate would be that 44.6 on today's tracks would be 42.6. How fast is that? The fastest 4x4 leg on record by a man is by Michael Johnson, a great champion, 42.9 on the world record in 1993. That means Mr. Mack gets the baton a step behind him and carries it a step in front of him. If you apply the 0.2 to 1952 and Cinder and carry it forward to now on synthetic tracks, that's how good they were.
The team won the gold medal. Herb McKenley persevered to accomplish his goal of Olympic gold.
Well, I was just so happy. I cannot tell you that I felt any way different. I was just happy that we won, that I finally got my gold medal.
Herb McKenley's amateur career ended in 1953 when he joined the professional sprint circuit in Australia. He received travel expenses, $22 a week in spending money, and when the 6-month season ended, a $1,500 guarantee. He also won $3,000 in prize money. The track and field world was at Herb's feet. He was internationally respected and extremely popular. Yet Herb McKenley chose to return to Jamaica. Herb was Jamaica's national coach from 1954 to 1973 and later served as the president of the Jamaica Amateur Athletic Association. He led a program that produced the international stars Lennox Miller, Donald Quarry, and Merlin Ottey, to name a few. By the 1970s, 60 to 100 Jamaican student athletes were receiving scholarships to American colleges every year.
Track in Jamaica, for every athlete, is a passage to the United States. It is a passage to higher education. And Herb McKenley opened the door for that. He not only got scholarships for Calabar boys, but every school, male or female, Mr. McKenley sent more people off on scholarship than any other single person in Jamaica. And I would say to you, the world. Because from the 60s onwards, the 60s through the 80s, Jamaicans were in high demand. And Mr. McKenley was instrumental in helping people to prepare paperwork, opening doors at the US Embassy, speaking, jumping on the telephone and calling persons and saying to coaches, prospective coaches, that this person is a good person and that Herb McKenley guarantees it.
In 1964, McKenley entered Kingston College to compete at the Penn Relays. This was the first time for a Jamaican high school team. Now, almost 30 Jamaican high schools send more than 400 boys and girls a year to this meet. Jamaican schools have consistently won almost half of Penn's relays for high school boys, and more than half for the girls.
I've been in the relays office for a little more than 20 years now, and what I've noticed is that whenever he would come into the office, we would have work-study students who often didn't know much about track, certainly not about track history, but Herb would walk in and they'd all be quiet, and when he'd finally leave, somebody would say, who was that? And they weren't like that with other coaches or other people who would walk into the office, but there was something about Herb that just inspired this sense of awe, that everybody knew he was someone, even if they didn't know who, and then you'd sit there and explain to them that this is the person who made Jamaican track and field. This was the person, the king of the sport.
The old boys of Calabar High School thought it fit to honor this giant on the 90th anniversary of his birth. The ceremony was attended by a number of notable old boys, including former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson and Mike Fennell, 2010 Commonwealth Games Federation President and President of the Jamaica Olympic Association. A plaque was unveiled by the Minister of Sport to commemorate the accomplishments of this great man.
When I travel around the globe, and I've done quite a bit of that, all you hear is people asking you, even children today, who was this great Herb McKenley? His reputation in Europe, particularly in Finland, of course, is larger than life. And there are people today who reminisce about his exploits in 1952.
One of my highlights is this medal here, the Order of Jamaica.
Yes.
That was...
it's the highest one aside from the Order of Merit, yes.
No, it's not the highest, but this is the Order of Jamaica. It's, I think, the third.
Third highest,
yes.
You have the Order of the Nation, Order of Merit.
And although it came from the government, in my eyes, it came from the people
of Jamaica.
In the days when it was not as difficult to get a US visa, and some of our athletes needed a visa. And I saw him in front of a consul general, and after he dropped a tear or two, the visa, 10-year visa, was stamped in the passport immediately. He was fantastic with that. A lot of people don't know some of the other sides of him. Just last Saturday, we laid George Carr to rest. George Carr had been struggling with illness for many, many years. And despite the fact of his great exploits, George was not able to contribute as much as he wanted to. And he wanted to, but he couldn't. But there was no function that Herb didn't go across to Helsha to pick him up and bring him to that function and take him back. So it's not the future. Herb was a person that was responsible for getting George a scholarship to Illinois University, where he did very well.
Vast array of it. Talk to people that think about money.
Yes.
You can get money. You can get money if you work for it. And in the amount that you envision that you're capable of doing.
Yes.
Because no matter how much money you accumulate, you can only spend so much in a lifetime.
That's true.
And, you know, I was telling, there are a lot of people think that I have a lot of money. And I said, no.
Because you drive a Benz.
Yeah. I said, no. I'm a rich man, though. And they said, but how you don't? And he said, I said, I'm rich in memories.
Rich in memories.
I cannot buy those.
So when we celebrate the achievements of our athletes, spare a thought for the greats of the past. People like Herb McKenley, who dedicated their lives to the sport. Herb not only performed on the track, but later coached and mentored many athletes. His influence, prestige, and love of the sport made it possible for Jamaica to be so powerful today. Long live the memory of Herb McKenley, one of the pillars on which Jamaican track and field is built.